Paralyzed woman sees husband sneak in a garage every night, follows him, and his secret is revealed. Brad had always been an open book until the accident. Now, every night, he slipped into the garage with a quiet urgency, leaving Liz with questions she couldn't shake. But nothing could have prepared her for the truth waiting behind that door. At first glance, their life seemed picture-perfect. Liz and Brad were the kind of couple everyone admired. Soulmates bound by love, laughter, and an insatiable thirst for adventure. Their two children, Max and Sophie, completed their idyllic world. Weekends were filled with camping trips, hikes through dense forests, and spontaneous road trips that always ended in a scenic sunset spot where they would sit, exhausted but blissfully happy. Liz was the heart of it all. She wasn't just a wife and mother. She was the spark that made everything come alive. Always the first to suggest an impromptu hike. Always the loudest cheerleader when the kids needed encouragement to scale rocky trails. And always the one who could turn even the most mundane outing into a grand adventure. One particular memory stood out among the rest. It was years ago, atop a rugged mountain trail, when Brad, sweaty and out of breath, had dropped to one knee just as the sun painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson. "Marry me," he had whispered, the wind stealing his words before Liz could fully take them in. She didn't need to hear them to know. She had seen it in his eyes long before that moment. And now, years later, that same light still flickered between them. Or so she thought. But life, as they knew it, was about to take a dark turn. It started as any other family outing. Packed snacks, the kids singing in the back seat, Liz snapping photos of the rolling hills outside the car window. They were on their way back from a weekend in the mountains, laughter filling the air as they reminisced about Max's first successful climb and Sophie's accidental tumble into a creek. Then it happened. A sudden jolt, a deafening pop. The steering wheel wrenched violently from Brad's hands. Liz barely had time to register the kids' terrified screams before the world flipped, literally. The car tumbled down the embankment, metal crunching against rock, glass shattering into 1,000 tiny daggers. The air was filled with the smell of burning rubber and the distant echo of sirens. But for Liz, everything faded into black. When she woke up, the sterile scent of antiseptic filled her nostrils. White hospital walls, machines humming a mechanical lullaby. And Brad, his eyes red-rimmed, voice thick with something she couldn't quite place. Fear? Guilt? Then the words came, soft but sharp. "Liz, the doctors, they said." He choked on the rest, but she didn't need to hear it. The weight of the truth pressed down on her chest like a heavy stone. She would never walk again. Recovery was a cruel game, and Liz felt like she was losing every round. The once vibrant, adventure-loving woman now found herself trapped in a wheelchair, watching life pass by from behind windows. She couldn't chase the kids anymore. Couldn't run up to Brad after a long day. The house, which once felt so full of life, now seemed too big, too quiet. Brad was different too. At first, he was attentive, almost too attentive. But then something shifted. It was subtle at first, late nights that stretched into early mornings. The muffled sound of clanging metal from the garage. The way he would slip into bed smelling faintly of motor oil, his hands rougher than usual. "Brad," she asked one night, forcing a smile as he walked past her. "What are you up to in there?" He paused for just a fraction too long. Then, with that same tired smile, he said, "Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart." And with that, he kissed her forehead and retreated into the darkness once more. But Liz wasn't convinced. The garage became his escape, his sanctuary. Night after night, he disappeared behind that heavy metal door, leaving Liz to wonder. What was he doing in there? Why did he need so much time alone? Her mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Was he hiding something from her? Someone? Even the kids began to notice. "Mom, why is Dad always in the garage?" Sophie asked one evening, her small face scrunched in curiosity. "I don't know, sweetheart," Liz murmured, trying to mask the unease growing inside her. She watched Brad closely after that. The way he'd leave the dinner table early, how his responses became shorter, distracted. And then, one night, she heard something that made her blood run cold. A hushed phone call, his voice low but urgent. I just need a little more time. She can't find out yet. Liz's heart hammered in her chest. Find out what? Her once unshakable trust in him now stood on shaky ground. Whatever he was doing in that garage, it wasn't nothing, and she was determined to find out the truth. Liz knew she couldn't sit back any longer. It was time to follow him. What she was about to discover would change everything. Nights grew colder, and so did the silence between them. Liz found herself staring at the ceiling more often, the sound of rain tapping lightly against the window while her thoughts raced. The Brad she once knew, the man who shared everything with her, now felt like a stranger living under the same roof. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed irreversibly. Was it because of the accident? Because she wasn't the same adventurous, energetic woman he had married? Had he grown tired of the limitations her wheelchair imposed on their once carefree life? She replayed their moments before the accident over and over again in her mind, searching for signs she might have missed. The laughter they shared, the spontaneous adventures, the way he used to hold her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Now it felt like he was drifting away, inch by inch, every time he disappeared into that garage. Her heart wavered between two conflicting voices, one urging her to trust him, to believe that his love hadn't changed. The other whispered cruel doubts in the dead of night, filling her with fear she couldn't voice. But Liz knew one thing for sure. She couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. It was a stormy night when Liz made up her mind. The soft hum of the wind rattled against the windows, the distant rumble of thunder echoing through the house. Brad had kissed her good night like always, but instead of falling asleep, she waited. She listened carefully as he slipped out of bed and tiptoed down the hallway, the faint creak of the garage door sending shivers down her spine. This time, she wasn't going to let him go without answers. With a deep breath, she wheeled herself towards the garage, each turn of the wheels slicing through the thick, heavy air of the house. The closer she got, the more she could hear it. Metal clanking, tools scraping, the occasional muffled grunt of frustration. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the door handle, hesitating for a brief moment. The glow of the workshop lights peeked through the small window, casting long, eerie shadows against the walls. With a slow push, the door creaked open. Inside, bathed in the golden light of a single hanging bulb, was Brad, sweat dripping from his brow, his hands covered in grease, and his eyes locked onto the intricate mechanical parts sprawled before him. He was so lost in his work that he didn't notice her at first. Liz could see the determination in his furrowed brows, the way his fingers moved with careful precision. She held her breath, watching in silence, heart pounding in her chest. Liz's eyes widened as she took in the sight before her. In the center of the garage was something that took her breath away, a vehicle unlike anything she had ever seen. It wasn't just any machine. It was an all-terrain wheelchair, rugged yet sleek, designed with an intricate suspension system, sturdy wheels meant to tackle the roughest paths, and an unmistakable personal touch. Every part of it screamed her. The sleek blue color, her favorite. The customized handles, the lightweight but powerful frame. Brad finally noticed her presence, freezing in place as their eyes met. For a moment, silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words. "Liz," he whispered, wiping his hands nervously on his oil-stained shirt, his eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion and hope. What is this?" Liz's voice trembled, her eyes darting between Brad and the machine. Brad took a deep breath, stepping closer. I wanted you to have this, to have freedom again, to do the things you love. I couldn't bear to see you looking out that window every day, Liz. I wanted you to feel alive again." Liz felt a lump rise in her throat, hot tears spilling onto her cheeks before she could stop them. She reached out, tracing the edges of the all-terrain vehicle with trembling hands, overwhelmed by the sheer effort and love Brad had poured into it. "You did this for me?" she choked out, looking at him with teary eyes. Brad nodded, his face a mixture of relief and love. "Of course, Liz. I'd do anything for you." And in that moment, she realized how blind she had been. Liz swallowed back the tears, feeling both overwhelmed with gratitude and a tinge of guilt for ever doubting him. I thought you were hiding something else," she admitted softly, lowering her gaze. Brad knelt beside her, taking her hands in his touch gentle yet firm. "You don't have to apologize. I know this hasn't been easy for you, or for us, but I never stopped loving you, Liz. Not for a second." Liz let out a small, shaky laugh, tears still streaming down her face. "I can't believe you did all this. I don't deserve you." Brad smiled, wiping a stray tear from her cheek. "You deserve the world, Liz, and I'll do whatever it takes to give it to you." They sat there in the glow of the garage, surrounded by scattered tools and unfinished blueprints, but none of it mattered. In that moment, all Liz could feel was love, the kind that perseveres through every storm, every doubt, and every fear. With a newfound sense of hope, she whispered, "Let's take it for a spin." Brad chuckled, his eyes shining with pride. "Tomorrow morning, and we're going to climb that hill again, just like we used to." Liz smiled through her tears, realizing that despite everything, some things, the most important things, never changed. And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed it. The morning was crisp, with a soft golden glow stretching across the horizon as Brad wheeled Liz out to the driveway. The all-terrain vehicle stood gleaming in the early sunlight, every bolt and screw meticulously crafted with love and precision. Liz's heart pounded in her chest. "Ready?" Brad asked, his voice a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Liz took a deep breath and nodded. With Brad's steady hands guiding her, she transferred herself onto the seat. The moment her hands gripped the controls, an electric thrill shot through her. The wheels responded to her slightest touch, and she could feel the power humming beneath her fingertips. As she rolled forward cautiously at first, she felt a strange but welcome sensation: freedom. Slowly, they made their way to the nearby forest trail, the familiar scent of pine and damp earth filling Liz's lungs. The crunch of gravel beneath her, the wind whispering through the trees, the distant call of birds. These were all things she thought she had lost forever. And now, here she was reclaiming them. As the vehicle climbed over uneven paths with ease, Liz's laughter rang through the air, raw and uninhibited. "I can't believe this," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I never thought I'd feel this again." Brad walked beside her, a proud smile on his face. "I knew you could," he said softly. As they reached a scenic overlook where they used to have picnics, Liz looked out at the sprawling forest below and felt something she hadn't in a long time: wholeness. When Emma and Jake ran up to her, cheering, she reached out to hold them, feeling more like their mother than she had since the accident. And in that moment, surrounded by her family and the beauty of nature, Liz allowed herself to cry. But this time, they were tears of joy. Word of Brad's invention spread faster than either of them anticipated. Friends and neighbors began showing up, curious about the incredible vehicle they had seen Liz riding through town. "What is that?" a neighbor asked, eyes wide with admiration. "It's amazing," Brad chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just something I put together," he said modestly, but Liz wasn't having it. "He built it so I could live again," she said proudly, gripping his hand. Soon, the local community was buzzing with excitement. News traveled fast, and one day, an elderly man knocked on their door. He introduced himself as Tom, a retired war veteran who had lost the ability to walk years ago. "I heard about what you did for your wife," Tom said, his voice filled with quiet hope. "Do you think you can make one for me too?" Brad and Liz exchanged glances, and in that moment, they knew this was bigger than just their family. Liz squeezed Brad's hand and nodded. "We'd love to." As Brad got to work designing another custom vehicle, Liz found herself dreaming bigger. "Brad, what if this could help more people? Not just Tom, but so many others who've lost their mobility." Brad looked at her thoughtfully, realizing that what had started as a labor of love could become something truly life-changing. Inspired by Tom's story and Liz's encouragement, Brad decided to turn his garage project into something greater. Together, they founded Freedom Wheels, a small nonprofit dedicated to building all-terrain wheelchairs for individuals with disabilities. The response was overwhelming. Donations started pouring in after a local news station covered their story. Messages from veterans, athletes, and even parents of disabled children flooded their inbox. People wanted to help, to donate, to be part of something that was giving others a second chance at adventure. Brad and Liz worked tirelessly, their garage transforming into a full-fledged workshop. Volunteers from the community showed up, eager to lend a hand, whether it was assembling parts, painting frames, or just offering words of encouragement. One of the most touching moments came when a young soldier, injured during deployment, received his custom-built wheelchair. He sat in the vehicle, tears brimming in his eyes, and whispered, "I thought I'd never go hiking with my son again. Thank you." Liz realized that this project was not just about mobility. It was about restoring dignity, freedom, and hope. As the months passed, Freedom Wheels gained momentum. They were featured on national television, their story resonating with people far and wide. Donations poured in, and soon, they were able to set up a proper facility with the help of a generous grant. Liz, once confined by limitations, now found herself speaking at events, sharing their journey and inspiring others to embrace possibility even in the face of hardship. Through it all, Brad remained the same steady, humble man who had once quietly disappeared into the garage each night. And as Liz looked at him across the room, surrounded by people whose lives he had touched, she felt a deep gratitude. "You gave me back my life," she whispered one evening as they watched the sunset from their backyard, much like they used to before the accident. Brad wrapped an arm around her. "No, Leaf, we did this together." And as they sat there, basking in the golden hues of the fading sun, Liz knew this was just the beginning. What started as a simple act of love between Brad and Liz soon became a beacon of hope for countless others. Their journey, once a private battle, resonated with people far beyond their small town. Couples facing hardships saw themselves in Liz and Brad, reminded that love, patience, and unwavering support could overcome even the most devastating obstacles. Their story spread like wildfire, capturing the hearts of many. News outlets picked it up, featuring them in articles and TV segments. Invitations for speaking engagements came pouring in, and soon, Liz found herself standing before large audiences, sharing their journey with raw honesty and deep emotion. Inspired by their resilience, an organization stepped forward to host a major fundraising event, gathering resources to expand Freedom Wheels further. The event was a resounding success, raising enough funds to provide all-terrain wheelchairs to hundreds of individuals who had lost hope of ever experiencing nature again. From veterans to children with disabilities, each recipient had a story of their own, a story that was now intertwined with Brad and Liz's. Their love had not only transformed their own lives, but had set off a ripple effect of change, proving that when love meets determination, miracles can happen. Liz often reflected on how drastically her life had changed since that fateful day of the accident. But instead of seeing it as the end, she now viewed it as a new beginning, one forged through love, patience, and an unyielding spirit. Their journey had taught them an invaluable lesson. Happiness isn't defined by what we have lost, but by how we choose to move forward with love and perseverance. Liz's message to the world was simple yet powerful. Nothing is impossible when you have support and love from those around you. Whether it was a spouse, a friend, or even a stranger, kindness had the power to rebuild shattered dreams and give life a new meaning. People from across the globe reached out to share their own stories, drawing strength from Liz and Brad's example. Some were inspired to pursue their long-forgotten passions. Others found the courage to rebuild relationships that had suffered under the weight of challenges. The phrase "love moves mountains" had never felt more true. One crisp autumn morning, Liz found herself back where it all began, standing at the base of the mountain where Brad had once proposed to her. But this time, she wasn't in a wheelchair and she wasn't alone. With Brad by her side, hand in hand, and their children skipping ahead, they began the ascent. The rugged terrain, which had once seemed impossible, now felt like a challenge she was more than ready to face. Step by step, powered by the all-terrain vehicle and the unwavering support of her family, Liz climbed higher. Reaching the summit was more than just a physical triumph. It was symbolic of everything they had overcome together. As they stood at the top, gazing out at the breathtaking view, Liz felt a tear slip down her cheek, not of sadness, but of gratitude. A gentle breeze wrapped around them, as if the mountain itself was acknowledging their journey. "We did it," Liz whispered, leaning into Brad. Brad smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "We always will." They stood there, taking it all in, not just the view, but the journey, the struggles, and the incredible love that had carried them through it all. Later that night, Liz shared their story online, posting a picture of their family at the summit. She wrote, "Life will knock you down. It will test you, push you, and make you question everything. But with love, patience, and the right people by your side, you can climb any mountain, no matter how steep." The post quickly went viral, amassing millions of likes and shares, flooding in with comments of encouragement and inspiration. People from all walks of life resonated with her words, proving that their story had become something far greater than they could have ever imagined. And as Liz closed her phone that night, she turned to Brad and smiled, knowing that their adventure was far from over. It was only the beginning. The story of Brad and Liz teaches us that love, resilience, and unwavering support can overcome even the most life-altering challenges. It reminds us that true happiness is not defined by circumstances, but by our determination to adapt, grow, and find new ways to embrace life's joys. Brad's dedication to restoring Liz's independence is a testament to the power of selfless love, showing that when we face adversity together, we can reclaim the things we thought were lost. More than just a tale of overcoming physical limitations, their journey highlights the importance of patience, trust, and the belief that with the right support, no dream is truly out of reach. Ultimately, their story serves as a powerful reminder that when life takes something away, love has the power to give even more in return.